Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Zerg. We're in the top left hand corner of King's Cove. We have a Protoss player. Well, I mean, he's a Protoss player with a little asterisk right next to his username. Playing with the blue Protoss probes. We're looking at Reynor's main hatchery. His opponent, down in the bottom right, one of South Korea's finest with the red Zerg drones. We have none other than Rogue. Now, before this series really starts off, looks like everything's normal. I believe that this is the video that's gonna go up on the 1st of January. Now, I'm not recording this in 2025, but I do think this is a perfect opportunity to let everybody on YouTube know that I wish you a very happy new year. Hope the 31st of December was fun. There's a lot of, well, promising RTS games on the horizon. I am planning on checking out basically all of them. But my question will always be, will any of them be even as, remotely as good as StarCraft 2, right? That's the thing. StarCraft 2 is, of course, a legendary game, and it really doesn't get much better. And one of the problems you have as a new RTS is that, well, StarCraft has like a decade and a half of head start. Like, when StarCraft 2 first came out, it was a really good game, but it's, in my mind, not even remotely as good as it is right now, and that's, of course, always one of those difficulties that you're gonna have to overcome. Either way, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be casting as much StarCraft 2 for the foreseeable future as I can. I actually want to try for the month of January. I don't know if I can keep this up, but I want to try and upload a video every day. I've also started live streaming on YouTube, which I want to start doing some more. I may even be posting some more vertical videos. I know! Like, I am of course, I am very young and hip with the kids, so I, of course, post on TikTok. Well, I don't know about that, but maybe at least a couple of YouTube shorts would not be a bad idea. Either way, Reynor, of course, one of Europe's greatest Zergs. He has decided to pick Protoss. He's done this a bunch of times in the past because, well, when you're playing Zerg versus Zerg, especially against one of the Korean players, you will have to do so on the North American server. If it's an online tournament and you're playing from Europe against one of the Koreans, generally you're playing on the North American server. And that means that everything you do is going to be delayed by a ping of about 150 to 250, maybe even 300 or so at times, which really makes the very fast-paced matchups very tough. I think Zerg versus Zerg is probably the hardest matchup across the board to play on ping. Like, where you have more than like 150 ping. It really is specifically very noticeable in ZVZ, because everything already moves at like 1,000,000 miles a second, and then all you have to do is just miss control for not even a split second, man. Like, less than that, then it's, well, just game over. Plus, on top of that, apparently Reynor just really enjoys playing PvZ. It's been a little bit since I've last seen him play a proper Protoss versus Zerg, so I'm excited to find out exactly how good he currently is. Rogue, of course, has been on absolute fire lately. I've been especially loving what Rogue does in Zerg versus Terran. But, I mean, his Zerg versus Protoss has not been looking, well, maybe not as dominant as his ZVT, but it's still been looking really solid. Reynor starts off with an Oracle into Void Ray build. Curious right from the get-go. Generally speaking, it's Void Ray into Oracles, or Oracle into Oracle, or Oracle into Oracle into Oracle. Maybe this is Oracle into Void Ray into Oracle? We're not even sending the Oracle across, we're actually just chilling. Using it just to secure the third Nexus. That's the plan. I mean, I think you're gonna have to send this one back though. Yeah, I was gonna say, this is not the moment to move out. The Adept is in a little bit of trouble. Rogue sending in some Zerglings to force this Oracle to start up the Pulsar Beam, and, well, it is gonna lose a little bit of energy because of it. Second Stargate on the back it is. Yeah, Reynor has got something dirty in mind. That's why he did go for the Void Ray here. The Void Ray can deny any sort of Overlord scouting. There is no second Overlord out on the map, but at this point Reynor does not know. It is going to be what seems to be a Queen drop here for Rogue. Okay. I mean, maybe at least. He's gone for a lair. He's going OV speed. Roach Warren looks timed correctly. Reynor's checking for this right now. He will see the little wobble right now on the hatchery, so he knows that something is, well, at least researching or building in there, but there we go. Overlord Cocoon coming up. It's additional Void Ray production. Reynor with the full Diamond League strategy. We're going mass Void Ray. Really? OV speed is almost done. He faked, by the way, an evolution chamber there at the front, I believe. Yeah, so a structure was building, he showed that, but that's of course indicative of some sort of macro game. This is Mass Void Ray. I kind of thought that this was going to be a transition towards Tempest, but maybe that was the original plan. I think Reynor has figured out what the opponent wants to go for. Because I cannot imagine that 4 Queens are going to be able to do a particularly great job against triple Void Ray, let alone 5 Void Rays, which is going to be coming on the back of this. Well, the Queens are spotted right now for sure. No shield batteries yet. It is critical to keep all of those units around. Rogue is completely all in with this, though. And already, look at the worker count. I mean, killing the 3rd Nexus alone is not enough. And I'm not even really convinced he can get the job done. It's gonna take these Voids a little while to, at the very least, kill... Oh, nice little bit of pickup control right there on the... on the Queens. Yeah, the Void Rays are gonna take a while killing the Queens. So, at least the Zerglings can finish the hatchery. Or, yeah, the Nexus off over here. One of the Voids goes down. We do have a fleet beacon on the back of this. This is not good for Rogue, though. I don't... Like, even though he's dealing a lot of damage here, I don't think this really leads to anything. Upon seeing the first Void Ray, I would imagine Rogue was putting his opponent on that Tempest transition that we've been seeing a lot over the last couple of weeks. Keep in mind, by the way, that Reynor could have also done that defense a little bit better, especially I'm thinking of the Oracle. The Oracle there activated its Pulsar Beam a couple of times, so I don't really know how much energy it had. But I can imagine a couple Stasis Wards would be superior. Reynor decides to sneak out, though. A base over here on the left. But anyways, as the dust settles here, I think this is still just fine. +1 flyer upgrades coming up. Carriers on the production tab. Is this good for Rogue? Like, Rogue is basically doubling down. He did make a round of drones, but he's now once more stopped with it. 3rd Stargate building here for Reynor. At this point, the Nexus on the left side of the map has been scouted. I don't like this build here from Rogue very much. Maybe against the Tempest all in, it would have worked perfectly. Obviously, Void Rays are relatively slow, so they take a long time to fire. Yeah, these Zerglings are still going to be hell to deal with, even though the Lynx can't shoot up. It's going to be enough. Interceptors are going to be very, very handy against this sort of thing. And effectively what this comes down to is a second layered all-in. Honestly, I think Reynor just doesn't transfer probes and he should be fine. He's going to try and see if he can keep this base alive. Really no reason to risk anything. Spire on the back of this, by the way, for Rogue. I don't know what we're going to do with the Spire. I guess he wants to go Mass Corruptor, but he doesn't have any income for it. He's on 42 workers. I find it very ambitious to be thinking about Corruptors when you're on not even 3 base saturation. So that's exactly what he decides to do right now. Queens inside of the plane. Try to keep all of this occupied. Nice pickup control here as well. One of the Phoenixes, too cool to look at the Queen. Decides to do the sideways pickup. And with some nice Void Ray micro. Yeah, all of this is very survivable. Maybe one of them goes down. Nope, everything's fine. There's a million Zerglings available. I like the idea of fully walling in here. I don't mind that at all. I think there's still a little bit of space. This is a little bit scrappy. Reynor, in the meantime, sending his big Skytles fleet across the map. There's more Queens waiting there. Spire is just about to finish up. There's about, gas for like 4 of them. Tempest now on the back of this too. As a Zerg player, I will be honest with you, this is like the stuff of nightmares. I have always struggled against Skytles, like for the last decade and a half. Reynor made the absolute minimum amount of ground units and just, well, skip the early game, skip the late, or he just went straight to the late game. Ridiculous. Next up, we find ourselves on Abyssal Reef. Now, by the way, as you may have already noticed, I managed to pick up a bit of a cold. It's not too bad today. Yesterday and the day before that, my voice was a little bit more messed up. At least it doesn't sound too weird. Like, no weirder than per usual. I've been taking it a little easy, but I figured today we'll be able to get some StarCraft cast in. Everything is gonna be okay. Ooh. Sorry, I'm curious. What happened? Lagging? Sorry. Staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive. Okay, no, sorry, this is too old of a song. Maybe Rogue knows it. I think Rogue is like maybe 30 years old. Reynor probably has never heard of that song. Staying Alive by the Bee Gees? No? Anyways, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what he listens to. Actually, I do know what he listens to. I remember once upon a time when Reynor, I think this is when he... Was this when he won the World Championships? Anyways, he released his playlist, like the music that he was listening to. And I remember listening to that music and doing like a little ladder session of my own. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be sick. It was a lot of like Italian hip-hop and songs that I did not recognize at all. Believe it or not, my knowledge of Italian rap music is very limited. I know this will come as a surprise to most of you, but wasn't my jam whatsoever. Looks like we have a proxy hatch rush. I like this idea here from Rogue, but he got the knight. Cybercore goes down. We do have to build the Nexus, but he's gonna be fine. He's thinking about walling himself in over here instead, though, because this has been a pull first. Oh. 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 He wants to build a hatchery really bad, but... Anyways, links are coming in. Zealot on the back of this, too. Good response, of course, by Reynor so far. Who did make... Do we make a Cybercore here, too? He's got the money for it. He's already been delayed. There is a proxy hatchery going down inside of the main base. A depth production is going to be critical here. I like this idea, though, across the board right here for Rogue. Because in a straight-up game, Protoss is really freaking strong. And I can imagine this is the type of game that Reynor doesn't have nearly as much practice with. Or practice in with Protoss. Fort right now at the front. This hatchery is going to finish up. Queen production and any sort of production over here in general would be really good. Rogue doesn't have gas, though, and he doesn't have a roach warren or anything like that, so it's not like he's going to be able to build too much scary stuff, just some slow Zergling production. Of course, it can win the game if you're not careful, but I believe that Rogue is going to just macro his way out of this, on the back of it eventually. Good shuffling so far, though, here, by the Italian Protoss. Oh, oh, a master of walls. Look at that. He's building a wall and he's making the Zerg player pay for it. Very nice. There's multiple layers to this wall, though. Yeah, honestly, this is showing that Reynor is a proper high-level Protoss player. Like, this is very little to be critical of. It's not even so much... I feel like this is the hallmark of a really good player, okay? It's not so much even... the decision-making in its own, but the fact that there is enough mental headspace to be thinking about everything else that needs to be thought about in the middle of a hectic game, that in my mind is what makes a really good player. Generally speaking, when I play in this sort of situation, this is what it looks like. Right? Like, that's basically what it looks like for several minutes in a row. It is just panic across the board. And it seems that Reynor doesn't really have any of those issues. I love the shield battery over here. If that shield battery stays alive, which it won't... I mean, everything else has already been killed. The fact that it was that much of a target in the first place is really good. Obviously, Reynor knows this matchup inside and out from the Zerg's perspective. And he knows, you know, how to fight this sort of thing. Like, in order to catch a mouse, you need to think like a mouse. If we're doing old school references. Anybody? No? Anyways. There's another gateway coming up at the front right now, but this has now been properly secured. I mean, a queen is coming up. There is more link production. What I thought was going to be a transition in the end is not a transition. Rogue is going completely all in. So he's going Zergling speed here in the end. And he is, well, he's making drones right now, but he is effectively just fully committed. I wonder if Reynor looks at some of those games that Clem has been playing with Protoss lately. He's like, yo, hold my beer. I got this. Some people are calling Clem the #1 Protoss on the planet. Watch this. I don't know what Reynor's Protoss MMR is. Clem supposedly is like 6'8", which is just nutty. I don't know if it's still 6'8", but I believe that's where he's peaked. Okay. That's only slightly, by the way. Like, Clem's Protoss, that's only slightly below the MMR count of, like, for example, Max Specs and Showtime, if Showtime is really trying. But it's up there. It's up there. And obviously, that also means you're playing... Like, when you look at MMR, it's the ladder rating, right? And that also includes matchups like Protoss versus Protoss, Protoss versus Zerg, matchups that Clem doesn't really care about. I would imagine his PVT is probably closer to 7,000 MMR, but... Anyways, I can imagine it's similar too for Reynor. Yeah, this is health. This is 100% health. And now he gets to do at least what looks like a relatively normal game. How do you decide to expand behind this, though? When do you make an extra Nexus? Protoss is very build order dependent. I feel like that's something you will notice, especially for players that are like, maybe like mid-Grandmaster or so. Like, as soon as they're thrown off in their build order, like mid-Grandmaster and below. As soon as, like, they're thrown off of their builds, generally the game looks a lot better for the Zerg. But Reynor is, in my mind, not really somebody who's too rigid. Zerg in general is a lot more free-flowing than Protoss is. So I don't really hate this position for him all too much. Even though it's a bit of a complex setup, so he's actually shooting down his own pylon. Maybe he wants to keep the wall up over here and go for the Nexus on the low ground, or maybe he just wants to commit. I mean, this is ultimately just... This is just Oracle Adept. Okay. Twilight Council on the back of this. +1 melee right now for Rogue. So Rogue just really trying to play a normal game on the back of this. Like, he is trying to transition out of this. I have noticed, though, so you know how in, like, Zerg versus Terran, Rogue is playing that phenomenal late-game style? And he's just relaxed, and he's just letting the game come to him, and he's not really playing that super hectic approach. Rogue, in this matchup, seems to have a lot more urgency. I've looked at quite a few Rogue games over the last couple of weeks, and it seems like he really tries to get the game over with quick. He does not want to play against Protoss when the game goes to distance, and I just don't see a follow-up here, where it's actually got... Honestly, this attack could be lethal. This is mostly just pressure right here for Reynor. There's no glaive to depth or anything like that. He's going for blink on the back of this. Rogue is trying to play catch-up, so he can actually play a reasonable mid-game here. Reynor may just actually win with the pressure. Yeah, I think this is game over. There's a third Nexus in the meantime finishing up. Blink is coming. We don't have a Forge yet, but yeah, Rogue cannot hold the little bit of pressure, so he's forced to tap out. Another series? Let's do another series. This time around, the Italian man has switched to Zerg. We have none other than Reynor. His opponent, this time around, a Protoss player, representing Team Liquid. We're looking at Skillous' main Nexus. Alrighty, both of these series were played in the same tournament, so it's from the Masters Coliseum. It's actually one of the biggest currently ongoing StarCraft tournaments. So the fact that Reynor actually decided to play Protoss, not just for a giggle, not just for the memes, but he actually is serious about it. It's pretty nice. I like it. Now we get to see what you're supposed to do, I guess, from the Zerg's perspective. I have had a look at some of the Skillous games lately, and Skillous has been really impressing me. I know Skillous has his ups and downs. And there are some games where he's just looking phenomenal, and then some others where I don't really love it as much. But I have recently had a look at some of his Protoss versus Zerg, and Skillous has been looking like a bit of a monster. Certainly one of the very best European Protoss players. I actually think Skillous is pretty underrated. So, yeah, we'll find out. Don't get me wrong, though. If I had to pick a favorite going into this particular series, even though I do like what Skillous has been up to, and even though Reynor has been playing maybe a little bit too much League of Legends as of late, he's still an absolute monster. Reynor's one of those guys who doesn't really need to play that much in order to be good at the game. There are moments when he practices a ton. There's actually something you will notice over the years in Reynor's performance in StarCraft 2. A lot of the pro gamers kind of have like a very steady skill level. Look at the Serals, the Clems, the Max Spexes of the European server, right? Like, they're always good. Rarely will we have a game where somebody, like, nobody looks at Clem's games and we're like, oh yeah, no, Clem is looking pretty, you know, but Reynor has had some of those moments in the past where he's just not really putting in as much work, and He's not really playing as much, and you can really tell in his gameplay that he's just not performing quite up to his own standards. And then generally, whenever Reynor really does put in the work, he performs better than pretty much anybody else under the sun. Reynor, of course, like I mentioned, he has won the World Championships back in the day, which is very impressive. He also, of course, did win Gamers 8, which was a really large tournament prize pool. Let me actually look that up. Yeah, that was $150,000 for first place prize. Not bad whatsoever. The global finals in 2019 when he got 4-1 against Dark. I actually forgot about that one. It's not even really that long ago. Yeah. Anyways, what I'm saying is Reynor, good. Skillous also good, but maybe not quite Reynor good. There you go. Stargate opener here. Nothing out of the ordinary. No surprise there. I think Reynor will be happy to play a straight-up game for at least the earlier stages of it. I'm not exactly sure what Reynor's goals are for League of Legends, by the way. I know he's been playing it quite a bit. So there's a couple of things as far as that goes. Right? First off, the StarCraft community always has said, StarCraft, the best game. You play anything else? Haha, loser. Right? Like, that's first and foremost the StarCraft player's mindset. There's a lot of haters in the StarCraft world for games like League of Legends, which I always thought was a little bit silly, but... Anyways, it is not 100% certain what the future of StarCraft 2 is gonna be like, right? So, even though, yeah, you may be very good at a video game, it is always difficult to actually reliably make future decisions, right? Like, decisions for your future based off of that. So, what exactly do you do if you're a professional player? What if you're a StarCraft 2 commentator? What do you do? Anyways, we're not really in the most certain of times. So, there's a good chance that StarCraft 2 will be here for years to come. Maybe there's going to be another RTS game to overtake it, right? Like, there's a lot of things going on. So we do have a snipe over here on the Adept. A little bit of mispositioning, I believe, there for Skillous. He's going to need that reinforcing Oracle to try and keep this Nexus around. Oh, big win here for Reynor. Yeah. No! No! Not a big win for Reynor. In the meantime, Skillous is like, yo, I didn't even look at that. No, he did look at it, I'm sure. 4 drones go down. Anyways, I can imagine for Reynor, like... Yeah, you can try and bank on StarCraft 2 continuing being awesome. Yeah, you can bank on, like, for example, another RTS game coming up. But those are things that are outside of your own control. And making decisions based on things that are outside of your own control is difficult. So, League of Legends will be here, right? Like, that's not going anywhere. I can imagine, maybe this is not his, like, overall goal, but I get where he's coming from, you know? Like, if you're good at games, it turns out if you're good at games, you're good at games. No surprise there, but I can imagine that Reynor would have at least a relatively easy time talking to, for example, League of Legends pro gamers and getting in contact with the very best, well, teams in that world too, if he really wanted to. I can imagine it is something that he would like to get into, but it takes a lot of work. Especially with a game, like any MOBA, just takes a ridiculous amount of work. You basically want to be able to play every champion, at least up to a reasonable level, and understanding everything of them, like everything at a deeper... It's a ton of work. So I don't really know. Maybe he's just playing for fun. But I know quite a few pro gamers. And generally speaking, pro gamers don't really... Like, fun is not really the main reason why they play, right? Like, they play to compete, which is pretty tough. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think you can play a competitive game if you're a professional gamer just for quote-unquote fun. Maybe a little bit, but not when you're putting in hundreds of hours. Anyways, Reynor's made an awful lot of links. I think he wants to maybe see if he can finish off the work on that Nexus from earlier, but the Nexus has already been healed back up a little bit. Everything's fine. Ah, it's a lot of links here, and none of them can really do anything. I have no idea, by the way, what his rank is. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's good in League of Legends. I don't really know anything about League, but I'm sure he's good. I remember years ago, actually. Sorry, I've not been casting this game at all, have I? I've just been talking. Anyways, I remember years ago during a Home Story Cup cast. This must have been like maybe, as we do have a kill on the 4th. Maybe? Maybe this time? No! Again! Ay. I've been yapping a lot. Okay, final yappage, and then we'll get into the actual game. At Home Story Cup on the couch once upon a time, I was casting games of StarCraft 2 together with Reynor, and Reynor was already playing some League of Legends back then too. And I jokingly said something about, oh look, you're like, what, a Platinum League of Legends player or something along those lines? And I remember he actually took offense to that. He was like, no, I don't know what his rank was at the time, but I am like a Diamond League player instead. He was a very proud, middle of the road, I don't really know how the ranking system works, but he was a really proud, middle of the road League of Legends player at the time. So I'm sure he's gotten a lot better since then too. This is what my cast will become over the years. Back in my day, when StarCraft 2 was a hip and cool game. I will turn into Deckard Cain as time goes by. Alrighty, now I'm liking this position here quite a bit. For Mr. Skillous in particular. He's got himself a 4th base up. It's just that in the late game, Protoss has been looking really monstrous. This is not an easy game for Skillous whatsoever, but in my mind, in my maybe slightly biased Zerg mind, he has survived the scariest part of this matchup. And that is... Okay, well now he's dead. No, never mind. He needs to get these stalkers out of here ASAP. These lings are not messing around. Don't go sacrificing an Archon. Oh no. He's trading out some of these units, but he's not really getting that much value. I don't really like this fight anymore. We need to go out. We need to leave. Whoa, what? Whoa! You see that? First time I've seen that on ley lines. Bailing speed, by the way, on back of this for Reynor, who wants to go into what seems to just be Hydraling Bane. So, mass Hydraling Bane, no Hive transition or anything along those lines. And if we are going to see it, it's likely going to be for Adrenal Glands and additional upgrades. He's got his eyes set right now on this 4th base. I don't know if Reynor has enough for it, though. The Stalkers are looking really nice here. Problem is they don't have their ranged upgrade yet. A couple of Queens waiting on the low ground to provide some transfusions. Now this is a wonderful upgrade to get. Specifically against Hydraling Bane. It's good in general, but really good against Hydraling Bane. So Psionic Storm is going to be Skillous' next weapon of choice. Alternatively, you can go into, for example, a bunch of Colossi. Like, there are quite a few good options available. I think Templar are the best ones, but it does take a couple minutes before that really goes underway. And, well, here go the first Banelings. Do we have enough? He's going to pull them away. Look at the High Templar on hold position, moving back, ready to take a couple of those Baneling hits to the face. In the meantime, we did have a bit of aggression, too, on the other side. This is dangerous. He knows that Storm is going to be close by. He also knows, though, that this base is essentially Skillous' lifeline. So if he can kill it, that would be big. And he is going to be able to finish off that Nexus. A couple of the probes also stuck right now at the bottom of this fight. So they're also likely to go down. And Reynor's plan is basically just to do a relentless mid-game, like, follow-up attack. That's basically all we're doing here. This has been a theme in most of the Zerg versus Protoss matchups as of late. Basically, no Zerg player right now is focusing on playing late game. They just don't want to do it. We had some of those games where, like, Serral was doing it against, for example, Estrella. And didn't work. Like, even Serral couldn't really play late game properly. So, yeah, it seems that the best approach, if your goal is to win the game, is to try and focus on either, like, a full-on mid-game push, or like never-ending mid-game aggression with maybe some late-game upgrades, but good Storm. Lovely Storm right there. But his Nexus is gonna get denied a second time over. Storm is also now a little bit easier to transition into, right? Because you do have that Nexus ability, which really does allow you to get some extra Storms out a little bit quicker. I wouldn't say it's best for that, but it is one of those things that does make that overall a little bit easier. Okay, well, Reynor is gonna make a transition. Lurker Den is coming up together with an Infestation Pit, but this is him saying, yo, I wanted to win earlier. No cancel. This is him saying, I wanted to win earlier. Now I need to go for like a nail in the coffin type of attack. It's 11 minutes, nearly 12. And Skillous is still on 3 base. Fourth is going to be an absolute necessity. The main and the natural are running low. And these fights are starting to look much better here for Skillous. I don't really mind this that much anymore. Yeah, I say that. Good targeting, actually. Very nice dancing back and forth. It is about time, though, that Reynor backs off. Yeah. Resources lost-wise, pretty much even. But, of course, Reynor has had more income throughout this game. Oh, my God. Skillous, are we overextending again? He's hoping he's catching his opponent right now as he's droning up. Reynor had already droned up a little bit earlier. He's fighting deep onto creep right now, though, which is a bit risky. We already had a fight in the same area of the map earlier, and it did not go particularly well. What a lovely back and forth. It's like a tug of war right now. Huh. They're actually, like, they've been fighting for like 5 minutes straight. This is very Zerg versus Terran-esque, right? Where the fights just keep going and going and going. Yeah, here we go again. Reinforcements show up for Skillous. The fight is going to go a little bit in his favor again. Reynor, though, doesn't really... Yeah, I don't think it's really worth fighting on creep. Like, fighting on creep is a dangerous move. Hive, though, is going to finish up momentarily. And the Lurker Den is already done. If Reynor can suddenly whip out a round of Lurkers, it's going to be really tough for Skillous to do anything about it. I mean, Storm is good, but what he really needs is, well, preferably something like Skytoss, but that's not going to happen. What he really needs is proper robo production. If you're playing a ground-based army, it really needs to be Immortal Archon-based. So, yeah, he doesn't really have that. Obviously, Zealot run-bys are also really easy to deal with if you have a couple Lurkers set up. And now he spots the Lurkers, at least, before they're really done. Like, before they're really fully upgraded. Okay. Skillous is once more going into that fourth base. I like the Zealot run-by attempt. He needs to do something with them, and right now the Lurkers are not set up defensively. But ultimately, there's just not that much you can really do about it. With the Lurkers getting fully upgraded soon, Skillous realizes that there's no way for him to hold on. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on Frostline. Okay. Reynor, with the Relentless Mid-Game aggression, seals the deal with a bunch of Lurkers. That does seem to be what Zerg late game is good at, though. Like, if you're really far ahead, it can sort of seal the deal. But if you're even, right, if the game is like, yeah, mostly 50-50, then suddenly Zerg late game. I really don't love it. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. So that means you do seem to need to deal some sort of aggression, some sort of damage in the middle stages of the game, or maybe early on. Reynor checking out front. I think he just sent the drone a little bit early. He just pretended that he was meant to do that early, right? There's no way he was predicting a cannon rush or anything. That was a little bit funky. I think he just sent the probe early and then pretended like he meant to. That's what I do. Anyways, probe is going across the map right now. Skill is not really bothering with any sort of hatchery blocking or anything along those lines. Now, where did it go wrong in the previous game for Skillous? Well, he lost one of his oracles trying to kill one of his opponent's hatcheries, right? Remember when he tried targeting down the fourth? That was quite painful, because the follow-up aggression there from Zerg was just ongoing the entirety of the rest of the game. So, if you miscontrol any of those engagements, it just makes the base defense really tough. He was effectively stuck on 3 bases for the entirety of it, even though he did get a 4th up a couple of times. Yeah, he just ran out of resources. It is super critical for Protoss to play a clean early game, because if you don't, like if you make any mistakes at all, like say you go for an Oracle opener and you lose one of them, it is so easy to accidentally die. Like, preferably you deal damage with the Oracles, you use them for scouting, but you also use them for mid-game defense, which is kind of tricky. It's one of the problems when most of your power resides in one unit, right? Like, the margin for error becomes really small. But it is just simply the way the game is currently designed. Okay, so where do we go? Where do we go from here? I guess one advantage, like one thing you can do, we have seen Protoss players mix up their amounts of oracles a little bit in the past. Nowadays, we don't really see mass oracle play very much anymore, but I've always been a fan. I guess against Hydras, it's not ideal, but the standard is to go like 2, maybe 3 oracles, right? Like we see that all the time. I wouldn't mind seeing Protoss players maybe mix up a 4th or even a 5th oracle. Although not very popular these days. They just seem to have so much utility later on into the game. It would shut down basically any sort of Ling Bane-based armies. You would force out a Hydra transition at the bare minimum. Maybe a Muta transition, but yeah. Not really something Zergs want to do when they know you're going Stargate regardless. He wants to get the Creep Tumor, doesn't get it. Oracle, though, is coming up once more. Ovi is going to get sniped. We should see a 3rd Nexus. Very quick 3rd Nexus, by the way. Whew. Normal timing for the 3rd Nexus is about 20 seconds later. This is because he decided to go for the delayed gateway here. Cutting a couple of corners. We don't really have that many Protoss units here in general, so it's just a single Adept into a single Stalker. That's it. That means his only real form of damage early on is going to be those Oracles. And we only go for a single Oracle too? Really? Yeah, he's going straight Twilight Council, straight Robo Facility. So this is Skillous effectively skipping his entire early game. Obviously, you can't skip the early game, but he's skipping as much of it as possible. Exceptionally greedy. If you go up right now against any of those rogue aggressions that we saw earlier, you're super dead. Maybe this is how Skillous feels, though, like he needs to play against Reynor. Reynor very much so known as a mid-game player. Back when Reynor actually first came up, he would rarely play late game. This was, well, he was like 15, 16 years old at the time, so he was still very young. Oh, snap, I let go of my mouse. Suddenly, yeah, we're going nowhere. Anyways, he was very good at the clean execution of the early game and then relentless aggression in the mid game. And it seems like we may be back to that in the current patch. Reynor got, of course, very good at playing late game over the years too, but he's never really been like a late game guy in my mind. Maybe I'm mistaken, but there's no denying that he used to be exceptionally good at just, well, he still is, but everybody got good at it, right? At that non-stop aggression in the middle stages of the match. So we do have a cheeky little Archon drop on the back of this here for Skillous. This Overlord is going to have to fly away. Get out of here, Reynor! The men with lasers for hands are here. Laser man. Laser, 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 laser man. It's funny though, this follow-up. We don't really see this all too often anymore. We did see like some Dark Templar into Archon drops a little tiny bit again for some time, but this was horrible by Skillous though. He flew way too deep. At least he kept the Prism alive, but that was way overextended. Second Robo Facility coming up. +1 already researching. Reynor already has an Infestation Pit, by the way. Okay. So we are going late game. So we're skipping early game as much as we can. We're skipping mid game as much as we can. We are going straight late game. 6-minute Hive, 6-minute Storm, 6-minute second Robo. This should just be Roach into Lurker again here for Reynor. He does have a Hydra Den, but I'm assuming we're going to see a Lurker Den pretty much immediately. This is an interesting gentleman's agreement here. This is like the StarCraft 2 equivalent of like 20 minutes no rush in Command & Conquer or something, you know? Except it's more like a maybe 7-minute no rush. Maybe we can even arrive at the 9-minute no rush. I mean, we've been pawing at each other a little bit. Yeah. But very minimal losses across the board. Now, in order to play late game properly, Zerg really needs 8 gas. Bare minimum. So, that's what he's doing right now. And that's exactly why Skillous is moving out right now. He wants to try and see if he can get a snipe. Oh, these Zerglings! Oh, lovely play still. Forces one of the Archons. That's 2 High Templar that had Storm for energy down the drain. Reynor is really just trying to keep this base around, and this is ultimately also buying him a lot of time. Skill is a little bit concerned right now for a potential transition towards Mutalisks. Obviously, he doesn't have he doesn't have blink or anything easy along those lines here. Storm Archon's still pretty good, but pushing up the high ground. Maybe if he would not have lost those 2 Templar, this would have been doable. Immortal misrallied. One of the High Templar overextended. At least the Immortal lives up to his username for now, but I don't love this. Zerglings find their way into the... Oh, once more, man. Overextended with the Prism. That's the same Prism. Overextending twice. Fight over here. I think he forgot charge. Or at least the charge is very late. Fleet Beacon on the back it is right now for Skillous, who's somehow still dealing a bunch of damage over here. But this has been quite sloppy. Forgets a couple Templar here. At least he picks up on those pretty quickly. Okay, I really like the first 7 or so minutes in this game for Skillous, and then everything kind of fell apart. It's not bad by any stretch. Like, we're not like in a game losing position here. But this is... Reynor now able to survive the scariest part of the game. Fleet Beacon, by the way, not for a Skytles transition, at least not yet. This is just to get the mothership out. Roach is going in. They are on the wrong side of the map, though, if they want to defend against this army. These are still, of course, yeah, lurkers. You have to worry about them, and they are scary. Roaches now do try to force their way into the natural. This is mostly because Reynor doesn't want roaches anymore, so he's trying to just deal however much damage he can. The age for the roach is over. Recall has been activated, so the Protoss army goes back home, and honestly, these roaches find themselves sandwiched. Poor roaches. Was that good? I don't know. Maybe these lurkers can make this fight more justifiable. A couple of zealots here trying to be annoying. Nexus on the right side, though, is gonna go down, and this really is Reynor's go-to play, okay? Just try to deny a 4th Nexus. Don't allow a 4th base. In order to play late game in StarCraft 2, you need 4 bases, bare minimum. If they have it for a little bit, that's fine, but he really is focused on trying to almost like suffocate the Protoss from the inside out on just 3 bases, because 15 minutes in, those 3 bases will run out. Maybe a little bit later. But the main and the natural will start running out low already at this point, 11-ish minutes. So if you can, yeah, prevent Protoss from mining a 4th base for too long, life's gonna be excellent. Once more, we have a split-up attack here. He's gonna try and snipe down this Nexus. Is the Protoss army close by enough? We do have a flank as well coming in. He wants to get the carrier. I think he's being a little too greedy. Should be able to kill the Nexus, although maybe if the mothership... the mothership could have kept flying. Activated cloaking field there, because there was no detection. Either way, Reynor's got his eyes set right now as well on the 3rd. That would seal the deal. I wonder if this is a little overly aggressive, though. Keep in mind that this is the entirety of the Protoss army going up against about half of that of the Zerg. I think this is an overextension by Reynor. Yep, great cleanup here by Skillous. 18 probes do go down, though, which is a lot. Couple of Hydras here, hanging out in the natural expansion. Yeah, Reynor's just a bit of a monster. Mid-game, dude, I'm telling you, mid-game aggression from Reynor. He's not even really doing anything super special. He just commits at the correct time. Now, Skillous is gonna go and still transition towards Skytles here regardless. He may have lost his 4th base again. He may have lost 34 probes. But he does still have a banger army. And this is a scary unit comp. Then again, Reynor's army is huge. Yeah, if you look at the resources spent right now, it is actually relatively even. Despite Reynor being like 60 supply up. Oh no. Misrelied army? Careful. Zerglings are still going to town though. Ooh. Okay. This is turning into almost like an all-in now. He's not really adding on any additional probes. So that means Skillous effectively needs to win this game with this fight right now. At least ground weapons level 3 is finishing up. Do you recall towards the mothership? I don't know, man. You kind of need these carriers in the fight if you want to try. But if you give Zerg too much time, they're going to keep making anti-air. Reynor decides to go for the safety approach too. Build up the Spire. Hydra Corruptor, of course, the best unit composition in the entire game. Time Warp goes down. Okay, honestly, I don't mind this. Not a terrible fight for Protoss. He just doesn't have the numbers. I mean, this is still a good army, though. The Immortals are hitting really hard. Cloaking Field gets activated again. There are Overseers up in the air, so those are the detectors here for Reynor. He doesn't see exactly what's up. But he can just almost like double tap this hatchery and it will go down. High Templar, no! Misrelied. At least some of them did find a safe haven underneath the cloaking field of Mama. Sitting under the mothership's wings is my favorite part of the day. Anyways, he kills the hatchery, gets out of there, but loses a couple of troops once more unnecessarily. Immortals, though, having a grand old time. I find this execution relatively sloppy from Skillous. Obviously, it's really hard, but we've seen like a dozen units getting misrallied. He's falling into the trap of all army hotkeying a bit. I think this is full crisis mode right now for Skillous, whereas Reynor still seems to be able to think in these very hectic scenarios. Little Zealot run by though, and this is a lovely Zealot run by, capable of doing a lot of damage. Skillous still at an extremely low probe count. Only at 36. I mean, I guess he doesn't need that many more workers because he doesn't have any mineral fields to mine from anyways. He's thinking about making another base though. Yeah, this is not looking like a game that's gonna end just yet. Reynor only at 58 work. No, not more Templar. Okay. Thought that they were gonna get sniped to death right there by the Lurkers. Reynor only at 58 drones. That's not too much. Wouldn't mind seeing him rebuilding that expansion over here. Dude, this Protoss army is behaving like it's twice as big as it actually is. You can tell here that Zerg players have been burnt a couple of times. On underestimating the Protoss army. Reynor not willing to jump it. He's just letting it come to him. That's, of course, the tricky part about playing Lurkers. You can't really, push into the opponent very easily with Lurkers. You can, yeah, invite them onto creep and maybe into the Lurker's range, but chasing down an army with Lurkers is pretty much impossible. Neither player actually producing anything here. That's weird. 16 minutes into a game of StarCraft 2, production tab is empty. That's very strange. Skillous has smashed his piggy bank and got enough money here for one more carrier. Reynor still busy denying it. He decides to go into a couple of Vipers. Okay. Yeah, a couple Vipers, couple Infestors. I don't mind it at all. You can no longer abduct the mothership, but you can still, of course, well, abduct other units. It's just that Skillous has been quite on point with his High Templar control. So feedbacks should be reasonably good. +1 armor, by the way, does benefit Vipers. 4th Nexus. Attempt number 69 right here by Skillous. He's been trying to get a 4th base up in every game so far, and he just has not been able to pull it off. He gets it for a little bit, and then it dies again. Reynor absolutely relentless, though, at the scouting. Figures out that that expansion is coming once more. And with Adrenal Glands, I mean, it's not even done yet. This Nexus would die immediately, but it's only gonna take a second or two longer. And no cancel. Oh, God. Okay. There's like 6 things to manage right now. Skillous, sadly for him, not quite paying attention to this part. 400 minerals down the drain. It's not something Protoss can really afford. Now Reynor is starting up the safety Spore Crawlers. He's going into the Corruptors. Yeah. I'm impressed with the way that the Zerg players have been playing this matchup lately. It really is all about trying to keep Protoss small. It really is all about trying to prevent playing a proper late game. Like, yeah, this is a late game, but it's a late game with an asterisk right next to it. This is not a late game, you know? Like, this is Protoss who has a bunch of late game units, but no income. Like, maybe he, like, inherited the family land, and he inherited the manor, and he's got all the fancy clothes and everything, but he has no way to actually support any of this. He's trying. He's trying to see if he can create more income, and it looks like maybe that 4th Nexus is gonna happen. But this has never been an easy economical game. Reynor, by the way, going very, very low worker count. Like, this is a conscious choice, it seems, by him. Like, yeah, he made more Spore Crawlers, and that's nice and all, but he has basically no money. Only 44 drones. He's also not been too keen on trying to make another base. I wonder if that's the correct play. I think Skillous can actually kind of chill. He doesn't really need to be aggressive. He can just take this Nexus and sit on it. That's what she's... No. Hold up. No. We're going fishing. Yoink. Good abduction in the end. Good feedback too, but not enough. I think that's the first time Skillous actually saw that there were any of those Vipers out. Maybe he already had a glimpse of it, but he needs to be... he needs to be very, very careful. I like this, by the way, from Reynor. The oldest Zerg trick in the book. It's to... ooh, we do see a couple of units getting caught here. It's to put the Corruptors, the Vipers, but then also the Overseers on one control group. And the idea is that Protoss doesn't have an easy time feedbacking this army. Or casting feedback on this army. There you go. I know that triggers some of you when I say feedbacking. Anyways, there's no easy way for him to get that done when there's also Overseers that are technically spellcasters. So you can accidentally feedback a Overseer instead of a Viper. And these units can clump up together. It's kind of difficult to target. I think it's actually fedback, the correct past tense of feedbacking. Feeding back. Fedbacking. No, I don't think it's fedbacking. I don't think that's right. Anyways. We have a couple of Protoss units. Oh, sorry, buddy. You're dead. You just... Oh, never mind. We have a couple of Zerg units here waiting in ambush. I don't know if I like that too much for Reynor. Honestly, Skillous' army is looking freaking scary. I don't know if he realizes it himself, though. Like, this is one of those games where you kind of feel like you've been losing for the last 10 minutes, but you're still in the game. And he's actually got a banger army. Oh, Reynor does decide to jump this. No splitty. No splitty against the Parabubs. He's storming his own units. I mean, that's not the way to do it. Nope. Nope. That is... I know in StarCraft 2 co-op, storming your own units replenishes shields. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do that in multiplayer. That was also only like half of the Protoss army present, though. And what Skillous has been building up over the last 10 minutes just absolutely fell out of the game. At least the caustic spray ability is on cooldown for some of those Corruptors, so maybe that Nexus can live for a little bit longer. Reinforcing Zerg units, though, have made quick work of any of the leftover Protoss units on creep. We have caustic spray, I guess, attempted in the main. Yeah, it's still on cooldown for some of these bad boys. Ah, that's too bad. I think Skillous actually had a chance. I really do believe he had a good opportunity there, but Did he capture it? Or, no, I mean, he's doing some good jobs over here storming the Corruptors. I think he let it slip. Like, there's like vomit on his sweater already. It's all mom spaghetti. Like, he did not micro that even remotely correctly. I don't think he expected, though, because Reynor had not been fighting him off creep ever, right? Or, like, he's not been fighting him off creep at all. So I think Reynor suddenly coming in from 3 sides all at once really did catch him off guard. And ultimately, yep, that can only mean that Reynor wins 2-0 playing Protoss against Zerg, but then also 2-0 playing Zerg against Protoss.